Ah, terrible lighting. Terrible. Well, sorry. Anyway, today's lesson is about authenticity and just showing up as you are. So I'm yours as is. That's all I can say, just as is. And horrible lighting and all. Let's see what happens if I turn it off. Oh, that's even worse. Okay, there's an interesting glow coming off of my head. Interesting. So today I wanted to chat briefly about what what were identified as the five freedoms. And I want to also kind of balance that with the idea of the five systems of the body, as well as the intensification and de-intensification cycle, which is what we're all in. It's really allostatic load. Allostasis is the ability to rise and fall with conditions. So the five freedoms are simply to perceive, to think, to feel, to choose. Well, desire first, then choose. All right. So feel, perceive, think, feel, desire, and then choose. Those are the five. And so you have a right to perceive as you perceive, to think what you think, to feel what you feel, to desire what you desire, and to choose what you choose. Not what somebody else perceives, thinks, feels, desires, or chooses for you, right? Not what your parents think, not what your therapist thinks, not what your clergyman thinks, but what you think, what you perceive, what you feel, especially feeling. That to me is like key because nobody can tell you how you feel. Now, sometimes my perception's a little off, so I appreciate somebody else's perspective. It helps my perception sharpen. Sometimes my thinking is a little off, so I help somebody else's thoughts would be helpful, right? So I'm not going to say that just what I think and perceive is the God's end, right? That's not the truth and the end all and the be all, but it is for me ultimately. And so if I choose to change the way I think or perceive something based on input that I receive, then that's not a bad thing. That's being in my freedoms. And this is what we're talking about, the five freedoms: to perceive, think, feel, desire, and choose for yourself. Now, enter in these five systems of the body, which we will call in shorthand the isoma. I get these from Steve Hoskinson's Organic Intelligence. And, we've heard about these a lot. We hear a lot about uh, four systems, right? So, images, sensation, meaning, and affect, ISMA, is very common in the therapy world, right? Working with your images, working with your sensations, recognizing the meanings that you've made and your feeling state, your affect, right? And orientation is the one that Hoskinson emphasizes, I think, in his work or adds to this ISMA, is to make the isoma. And so images, sensations, orientation, meaning, and affect. And the thing about the ISMA is they are all interioception. So it's like interior perception. You're going to perceive what's going on internally. All right. And orientation is more exterioception, what's going on around you. And I like to say that, when we're stuck in like a trauma response, we're probably not in the here and now. We're probably more likely in the there and then. And this is where orientation becomes vitally important to bring ourselves present to this moment. I've shared with you before about that idea of the wolf at the door. That was for me very common feeling. Oh my gosh, there's a wolf at the door. And every time I open the door, there's no wolf. But the image of a wolf at the door is very profound for me, and it can send me into overwhelm. And that's where the intensification and de-intensification cycles come in. And if we're in overwhelm too much, we're in overload, right? So you don't want to be overwhelmed and you don't want to be underwhelmed either, right? You want some natural sense of stimulation, but not too much. Just enough, just right. It's a little bit like the Goldilocks syndrome here. Okay. So images, sensations, meaning, and affect. Images, sensations, orientation, meaning, and affect are like our critical internal functions, and you can tap into those for yourself pretty easily. And orientation is often just to orient to the space you're in this moment, the sounds that you hear, the sound of my voice, the quality of the light. Yeah, this is really weird lighting here today. Let your eyes just wander. There's no particular need to make meaning out of things, right? But then you may find yourself beginning to make meaning. You see something and you name it. I see a chair, I see a table, I see a desk, I see a lamp, I see Sweigart on the video, I see my computer, I see my laptop. Yeah, there you go. So orientation, but those anytime you identify something, you're triggering the meaning system in your body. And hopefully the meaning isn't so overwhelming, right? Because we will make meanings out of things. Doctors love to do this, by the way. They're always making meaning out of your symptom pattern so that they can diagnose this and then they can prescribe you some medicine and charge you some money. Um, and sometimes that's really, really helpful. So I don't knock it, but it's making meaning sometimes, like one of my teachers used to say, don't jump to meaning, right? Don't jump to meaning. So let meaning reveal itself. So that's what I wanted to share today. The five freedoms: the freedom to perceive, to think, to feel, to desire, and to choose for yourself. Not what your teachers want you to perceive or think or feel, not what your parents want you to perceive, think, or feel, not what your society wants you to perceive, think, or feel, right? And that's tricky because we get into this thing we call covering, right? And I love this. I love this talk I heard recently. It was on that Ravi Shankar episode about, he calls it the hidden brain. And he was talking with a gentleman who says, why do we behave not as who we authentically are? And we pretend to be someone we're not. And there are socially acceptable reasons why we cover. We don't say that really rude thing that we want to say sometimes in certain social contexts because it would not be correct. It would not be appropriate, uh, be upsetting, perhaps. And not just to the people who you may be rude to, but to yourself and anyway, lots of different things that go into that, which would cause you to pretend to be somebody other than you are. But as long as you're conscious of it, you're at choice. And then you're exercising your five freedoms. And then you want to watch this intensification and de-intensification cycle so that you don't go into overwhelm where your system shut down. And sometimes you do go into overwhelm and your systems do shut down. And that's a godsend, actually. Yeah, I'm so grateful when my system finally says, stop, shut down. It's okay. All right. I've held forth enough for today. I hope you enjoy that. Take a good care. Take a good care. Remember your five freedoms. Remember your isoma, your five functions, and watch for that intensification and de-intensification cycle and be at choice. All right. Talk to you next time. Bye bye.